Thank you for tuning into Literary Blend, a publishing podcast. I'm your host, Demi Michelle Schwartz. There's no perfect recipe for chasing a dream in the publishing industry, but I hope the conversations on this show give you the ingredients you need to bake yours into reality. So let's flip the page and get into this chapter of Literary Blend. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Literary Blend. Today's chapter is called Writing for the Middle Grade Audience. And joining me on the show is someone I'm delighted to have a chat with. She is so kind and encouraging. She actually gave me feedback when I was querying on my query package, and she's a superstar editor, agent, and author. Please give a warm virtual welcome to Carey Blankenship-Kramer. Hey, Carey.
Oh, thank you so much. What a kind introduction. Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, and I'm so excited to chat with you about all things middle grade and your upcoming book in 2025. Oh, it's coming. I'm so excited for
Woo!
you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to talk too. I love middle grades. It's perfect.
Fantastic. Well, to kick things off, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and your journey in the publishing industry so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey was a little long-winded. When I graduated college, I knew that I wanted to work in publishing, but back then remote opportunities weren't very popular. So I kind of quickly gave up on that dream because I didn't want to move to New York City. Not a big city girl. So I got into marketing for a while, but while I was doing that, I picked up internships and first reader programs and worked directly with a lot of agents. And in 2023, early 2023, I got more serious about pursuing that again. So I cold emailed lots of agencies seeing if they needed somebody like me who had experience to join their team. And Bill Castro Agency was wonderful when I got to chat with everybody. Fell right in love with working there. So that's how I got there. It was very long, lots of years, but very happy to be here today.
Fantastic. And how about you as an author?
Oh, even longer. I started writing when I was 8. I would do role playing, warrior cats role plays, actually. But from there, I finished my first book when I was 16. But I didn't get an agent until last year either. So over a decade of writing and querying. But then, actually, 2 weeks before I got my agenting job, I got an agent. So they happened right around the same time. And then from there, we went on sub and very quickly sold my book. That's coming out with Scholastic. It was very quick sub, thank God, after a very long querying. So I'm very excited about it for sure. So,
Yeah, awesome. Well, congrats again on your book deal.
thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's dive into our chat about middle grade. So backing up from the beginning, when you were growing up, what were some of your favorite middle grade novels?
Oh, yeah. Fablehaven by Brandon Mull, I believe his last name, was a book I adored and ate. I remember taking like one of those standardized tests in schools in middle school and like finishing really fast so I could read the next Fablehaven book. I probably didn't do a great job on the test, but I really loved that series. I actually didn't read like any of the classics until I became an adult, like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. I didn't read until I was an adult. I wasn't. Oh, okay, so I did read a lot of Warrior Cats. Shiloh is one that I think about. The Beagle Dog. It's very a sad book. I loved the Heartbreakers. So Where the Redford Grows, things like that.
Yeah. Well, I actually didn't read Harry Potter or Percy Jackson until later either. I started
Yeah.
reading Harry Potter when I was a senior in high school, and then I read Percy Jackson when I was in college. And it was so funny because I read The King Chronicles, which is another series that Rick Riordan did. And I read that first, and I like for some reason didn't know about Percy Jackson. And my friends who read Percy Jackson were like, "How did you like not know? Like, where have you been?" But the TV show was amazing. I don't know if you watched that, but oh
No, I haven't
gosh,
yet.
so
I do
good.
remember I used to get mad because I would always get second place in like the reading competitions at school because the girl I was facing against would just read Harry Potter over and over again. And I was like, that's not fair. I'm reading all these new books. So I don't know why I just didn't pick up Harry Potter.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was growing up, I loved the 39 Clues series, which is like a mystery slash adventure. I also loved the Hercules Jones series, which was a middle grade mystery series. And
Oh,
then
awesome.
anything by Mary Downing Hahn. Loved
Oh,
her
yeah.
books. So good.
Or I love the Boxcar Children too. I don't know if that counts as mystery, but oh, I there was a time in my life where I wanted to be a boxcar child, which is kind of toxic, but I was like, their lives are so cool.
Awesome. So when you started to dip your toes into being an author and now you have a middle grade horror that's going to be published, what made you want to write middle grade and middle grade horror specifically?
I love that question. I've always known I wanted to write kid lit. It's just been my favorite to read, since I was a kid and also as an adult. I read a lot more like YA and middle grade than I do adult fiction. So that was never a question for me. But the horror, I grew up also loving ghost stories. It would literally every Friday night would stay up late watching like ghost adventures and like scariest places to visit, those kind of shows. And I just loved reading scary books too. And it took me a while to write middle grade horror for some reason. I just didn't make that connection. I also love fantasy, but as I grew it into adult and started reading more middle grade, I realized horror is just such a wonderful place to be for kids. It can be really scary, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. But what I love most about horror is just the deep look it dives into with real issues kids are solving and facing. And I love that, yeah, there might be kids being terrorized by ghosts, but they're also facing really scary real life issues. And it's a wonderful place for kids to unpack issues like grief and bullying. And I just love that sort of metaphor you get to play with as a writer.
Right, absolutely. And I think too, with middle grade, there are so many kids reading books at that age. I think with the middle grade, that's when I really started to explore the art of stories and go on these fun adventures and fantastical adventures. And I really feel like middle grade widened my imagination. And as a kid, with that innocent childhood wonder and getting to explore and learn, like the 39 Clues series specifically, it's an adventure series, but they travel all over the world, and there's all this like educational stuff too, and it really just opened my eyes to things outside of my own perspective and my own life. And I think middle grade really has the chance to show kids what's out there in the rest of the world and
Yeah.
introduce them to these fantastical stories through the eyes of characters who are like them.
Yeah, exactly. I love that so much. It's middle grade is such a wonderful spot, and I think as we continue to, grow as a society too. My middle grade when I was in middle school wasn't anything as profound or what wonderful as we have today with all these different perspectives. So it's been really awesome as an adult seeing more and more middle grade get published too. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, on the business side, when we look at middle grade as a category, we have lower middle grade and upper middle grade. So, what insight can you give into the sort of expectations for each of these subcategories of middle grade?
yeah, as far as the market, I do think there's a lot more editors and markability for upper middle grade. I just think people love that, especially, and I know I do as well. When you get into lower middle grade, I do think there's a lot of room there too, especially if it's like really fun and silly. Kids love potty humor, that kind of stuff. But if you're getting into like the chapter book areas or like the lower middle grade, you kind of run into a danger there, or it's not a lot of editors are looking for that because there's so many giants in that industry. It's really hard to get past that. I mean, you're looking at like Captain Underpants and those kind of giants that have stuck around for a long time. It's really hard to break into that industry for sure. So if you're a debut author trying to balance that, it definitely depends on your story, and I think there's a reader for everybody. But if you're looking for like really high sales, definitely upper middle grade. I've found more success with my own clients and just my friends as well.
Fantastic. So, from the writing point of view, what are some things that you think authors should keep in mind if they are writing middle grade, and some of the things that you pull in as well, talking into, the voice, themes, that kind of thing?
Remember your audience. That is the most important. Your main audience are the kids. I think when you write middle grade, it's really easy to forget about that and think about, okay, I need to impress this editor or this agent or these adult readers. But at the end of the day, the people that matter the most to read the book are the kiddos. So it's really important to think about them. And but at the same time, you don't have to lower it. Like those kids, so smart. They know a lot. They can take a lot. Like I know a lot of times people don't realize how scary middle grade horror can be because those kids love that and they can handle that. So it's really important to find the right balance of not being too childish, but also exploring different uh, deep and hard emotions and also introspection with your writing. Kids are really smart. You don't have to slap the themes over and over again or remind them what exactly is going on. They know already. So,
Yeah, that's perfect. And I think that can be said for YA too. I feel like
uh-huh.
there's a lot of conversations going around about adults writing for middle grade and young adult and it coming off like you can tell the narrator sounds more like an adult and it's almost like the adult is telling the story through their eyes rather than the teenager's life for a young adult and the kids for middle grade. And so I definitely think just getting into the point of view and knowing the protagonist very well so you can speak through their eyes instead of it coming off like you're telling your own voice through that character.
Yeah, and it can literally be as simple as syntax. What word would a child actually use versus an adult? And
Right.
if they're using more complicated vocabulary, give them a reason for that. Maybe you're a kid is a really big reader, so has a very large vocabulary, or maybe they know all of these types of birds because they love bird watching. I don't think your regular child would know what a chickadee is versus something else. So it's thinking of the kids as far as like a word level can go very far, but also giving extra
Hmm.
reasoning behind word choices for your characterization is really fun too.
Yeah, perfect. And speaking of words, perfect transition into my next question on word count. That's always a hot topic.
Yeah,
So,
awesome.
what would you say are the typical or expected word counts for middle grade novels?
That's a great question too. So, what's really big in the industry right now is shorter books across all age ranges and all categories. So, if you've got a shorter book, I think that's really wonderful. However, I will say my middle grade somehow sold at 90,000. Don't recommend doing that. That was a
What? Oh
miracle, I
my
think.
gosh.
Right, right. So I would say comfortably I would work with a middle grade that's anywhere from like above 40,000 to like 80,000, but if we do 80,000, we're going to cut as much as we can. To I think the sweet spot's like above 40,000 to like 65,000 if it's a fantasy or a horror, something a little more complicated.
Yeah. No, I cannot believe that's so long. I can't believe. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, you're a perfect example of there can be exceptions.
There can be exceptions to everything. Just go in knowing that a lot of editors are very hungry for shorter books right now.
Yeah. So, what insight can you give into this whole idea of standalone novels versus series being popular for the middle grade space?
Yeah, so I know a lot of readers love series, but it is harder, especially if you're a debut author, which I love working with those in particular, to sell a series. A lot of editors don't know yet, and publishing houses don't know yet how that first book is going to sell. So it gets a little complicated there. I tell a lot of my authors, like, okay, let's focus on getting this book out. We can plot and plan for the next ones, but we won't be able to sell that until we see your sales come in. So if you're querying a book or pitching it that you think has series potential, I would leave it there. And instead of writing that sequel, I would work on the next project instead of focusing your time and energy on that. Of course, we hope that your book will sell really well, and we'll get to write all the novels that are like sequels and companion novels and things like that. But just with the way the industry is, a lot of editors like those standalone, and I don't know if it necessarily correlates directly with what the kids want, but trying our best to find the middle ground there.
I think it's really great how you mentioned to not write the next book in a series until you get the first one picked up. I'm in a similar situation where like I wrote a Little Red Riding Hood reimagining, and I have a sequel plan for it, and I'm like, "To me, do not write it. You have it outlined, but you're not writing it until this book gets picked up. Don't do it." But I have this itch to do it because, man, like, I want to, but it's not a good idea to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, same with me. I wrote a companion novel, but I'm finishing up revisions to take out the companion novel part because we just can't sell it yet until we see the first book. So when you have a little bit of industry insight here, when you have a contract for one book with a publishing house, you'll have something that's called an option clause that comes with that. And that is what you negotiate with your agent and your editor on what they get to look at next. So most of them will want to look at, like, let's say you sell a middle grade horror, they'll want to look at the next middle grade. And you have a timeline for that. I didn't know that going in as an author, but so an option clause could be anywhere from like 3 months is pretty standard to longer after you turn in your final version. So um, that ends up being usually much earlier than your book goes on sale. So if you're going to send them the sequel and your book hasn't even sold a copy yet because it's not published, then they likely won't be able to do anything with it.
Right. So, like, if it's, say, middle grade horror and you write another middle grade horror that's not in the same universe as the other one, they would take a look at that first.
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, super interesting. Yeah, I've heard about this before, but I didn't know all the details surrounding it, so lots of great insight there too.
Yeah, I'm going through that right now. So
So, I have one more question about middle grade in general before we switch into chatting about your book, and that is, as an agent and just reading a lot of middle grade too, what do you think some of the most common mistakes are? Maybe when you're reading foes or looking at the queries, what are some of the biggest middle grade specific mistakes that you would like to warn authors to stay away from?
yeah, I think kind of what we talked about earlier is that voice, which can be really tricky with Kidlit, is making sure it doesn't come across as too adult, but also too childish. You have to trust your readers a little bit there. I've seen a lot of people making the mistake of showing and telling, especially in Kidlit. I've seen authors do a wonderful job of showing me an exact emotion a character is feeling, but then they'll follow it up with a couple of sentences telling us exactly, even though you just showed us. I think that's an easy trap to fall into with Kidlit because you really want to make sure your themes are coming across or your plot points are coming across. But like I mentioned earlier, trust your audience more than you give them credit for. So a lot of times I will reject based on that, just because that's such a lot of work that we would have to do linear wise. It doesn't feel right to the author to ask them to sign with me, knowing that we're going to have to do so many changes.
Fabulous. So, this has been great so far, and now I want to give you the chance to share all about your fabulous middle grade horror coming in 2025. So, take it away.
Okay, yeah. So this book is called Ghost Scouts Honor. It's being published by Scholastic in January 2025. It follows Evie and a group of gals and non-binary pals, and one gentleman too. So they live in Savannah, Georgia, where ghosts are very real and very angry. And in this world, kids below the age of 16 can see ghosts, adults cannot. So it's up to the kiddos to see and handle the ghosts so that they don't ruin the adults' lives and like shut down businesses. So Evie signs up for an organization called Ghost Scouts, which is very similar to Girl Scouts, which was also
So fun.
yeah,
When I
which is
saw the
also
title, I was like, oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah, it was so much fun to write. And fun facts too, Savannah, Georgia is the birthplace of Girl Scouts. So it felt very right to set it there. Savannah is one of the hottest cities in America. So all of the ghosts you'll read are very historically based on real tales people have told as well. Um, so it was a lot of fun. You follow Evie and her girls Ghost Scout group as they try to uncover the mystery of why ghosts appeared in the first place in Savannah. So a
Love
little bit of mystery, a little bit of horror.
it.
It's really fun. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So, can you share some insight into maybe your inspiration for writing this specific story and your writing process?
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to be a writer that so I plan a lot. I outline everything, but it always ends up that my first draft ends up completely different from my final draft. So if that's you, you have hope. Don't worry. But I originally just wanted to write this story because I thought it would be so fun to write a Ghostbusters meets Babysitters Club book. And that's what started it all. And it eventually evolved into, okay, I want it set in Savannah because I'm a Southerner and I'll feel more connected to it. Oh, it would be really fun if it was kind of based on Girl Scouts, because they have, organization and rules to follow and badges to get. So it just kind of spiraled. It started with vibes and went from there.
I just love stuff with ghosts in it, so I'm so happy that yours is going to be added to the list.
There's so many really good middle grade horror that I just, eat up. So I know Clarabelle's Ghost Squad is a big one. Allie's Ghost Girl. Those are all just so good. And I love how both of those writers are so wonderful at tackling big emotions with like a fun ghost story too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when this book finally hits shelves, what do you hope it contributes to the market?
Oh, that's a great question. I hope it adds to just the wonderful roster of middle grade horror writers. I'm planning on sticking in this genre for as long as I can because I love it. I also really love that my story has queer and neurodiverse characters. So that was really important to me as both of those things to include characters in that world. So kids who feel that way are able to see their perspectives be told as well. The main character has ADHD, and there's several chapters where she's going to therapy, and you kind of watch those evolve. So I'm hoping that also helps kiddos who are like me, very anxious little girls growing up and trying to become something. So yeah.
Fabulous. Well, congratulations again on this incredible story. I cannot wait till it hits shelves.
Thank you. Me too. I'm very excited.
Awesome. So, just to wrap things up on our chat, what are some final thoughts you would like to share about writing for the middle grade audience?
Yeah. Have fun. I think this is such a really special space. There's a lot of room for new writers. So if there's just a fun new story idea you have, I really encourage you to tackle it and not be afraid, whether you're doing horror or fantasy, to make it really complicated or make it really scary or tackle really big emotions. I think kiddos, especially, we need more diverse voices in this industry by far. I would love to see more perspectives and more backgrounds get added to the middle grade market. If that sounds like you, I really encourage you to write your story and get your voice heard. And best of luck to everybody.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this wonderful conversation. And this brings us to the plot twist.
Oh. Oh, oh.
So, I'm going to ask you a question you could have never seen coming, and it's Taylor Swift related. So,
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Okay.
so there's two parts to this. So, what I want you to do is tell me what Taylor Swift song best represents your own life, and if
Oh,
your protagonist in your book had a Taylor Swift theme song for their life, what would it be? So, two songs.
okay. Okay, I was actually just thinking about this for Evie. I love Taylor Swift. In case you guys couldn't tell, hold on. I'm literally opening my Spotify right now. Oh, okay. So "You're on Your Own, Kid" would be my character's theme. I think for Taylor Swift, she is a bit of a loner and feels very determined to do everything by herself. And I feel like a lot of those themes make sense for Evie and you're on your own, kid. For me, oh my God, I don't know. Oh, oh, this is so hard. Oh my God, I'm thinking. I feel like Mastermind would be a really good
Good
one.
one. Yeah, yeah.
Just because of, I mean, as a writer, gosh, how much plotting and thinking we have to
Yeah.
do, especially as an agent too, for my clients. And oh, let me make sure I send this email right at this time or word it justly like this. So that's the only one I can think of right now. But my favorite album is Rep, so I feel like it's not fair if I don't pick one from Rep. And of course, my Spotify just crashed and is not opening. Everything's fine. I'm looking. Hold on. Uh, I love Taylor Swift. I love Ready for It too, like just a good classic bop. Um, you know what? I'll go with Mastermind. My
Cool.
final answer. Tagging that in.
That was perfect. Super fun.
A little chaotic, but it's fine.
Awesome. Well, it was a joy having you on the show. Can you please share with everyone where they can find you online, check out your fabulous book for the pre order, and also find out information on you as an agent if they would like to consider you for representation?
Yeah, so my website is pretty easy, Carey Blankenship Kramer.com, all lowercase, no spaces. Obviously, it's a website. I'm most active on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And my handle there is Carey F. Blankenship. The IP is missing, so it's CareyFBlankensh is my handle there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. And listeners, that is a wrap on this chapter of Literary Blend with Carey, all about writing for the middle grade audience. If you enjoyed our conversation, please consider leaving the show 5 stars and giving it a review to help others just like you discover it. Also, if you have friends in the publishing industry you think would enjoy the show, please pass it along to them. Thank you for listening, and until we flip to the next chapter, happy reading and writing.